Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. Great article here from T-Mobile's newsroom. I'll leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out. This will probably be a bit of a longer video, not too long, but I wanted to break down a few things in this video. So T-Mobile today announces another partnership with healthcare this is with EMS. And as we finish the year 2024, we head into 2025, we're going to see more of this. We're going to see them announcing more and more and more partnerships, right? We saw it earlier in the year. We saw it even to some extent towards the end of 2023. We saw the VA, then we saw the Delta Airlines. And T-Mobile is not just providing SIM cards anymore, right? So what they would do, the CIO of the business, they would call T-Mobile, hey, send me a couple of SIM cards so I can call Verizon and AT&T's bluff. And then they get AT&T and Verizon to lower the price again, and then T-Mobile would not get that business. T-Mobile is now providing entire solutions, not just SIM cards anymore. They're taking accounts. They're taking thousands of lines on some of these business accounts. Still very early on, but they're growing and they're maturing in the business. And as they do that, they continue to learn as to what's needed to get even bigger accounts. They're learning and growing in that aspect. So just briefly, advanced stroke diagnosis with an in-route care and 5G enhanced technology. So T-Mobile is partnering up with SIBA Health, I hope I said that right, in leveraging T-Mobile's asset, the 5G network, and it will allow EMS teams to connect with the hospital and doctors while they're en route already with the patient in the ambulance, so the doctor can maybe already diagnose or figure out what needs to be done before the patient even gets to the hospital. And then there's a video there as well. So what I wanted to discuss, because this is part of network, it's something that I watched last night. I watched the Capital Markets Day where T-Mobile presented in Deutsche. This was Deutsche Telekom's DT's Capital Markets Day in Germany, and T-Mobile mentioned something that hasn't been discussed. I talked about it briefly, but T-Mobile has a term, and they call it outsized growth. Now, what that means, they are growing beyond what they currently have in the asset base. So, of course, they're not there. They're not there today, right? They still have probably years of runway, but at the current growth, they're calling it outsized growth. So they're growing beyond the assets that they have today. That includes the mid-band, the N41, and everything. Once they have that loaded up, that's why they call it outsized growth. So in the meantime, while they are growing at that pace, they're already a big company, and they're still growing like they're a small player. That's why I feel they call it outsized growth. While that's going on, and while they're striking these types of business deals, right, they still have to maintain the network for everybody. That's something that they always discuss in the small videos that they post, that yes, we have to make sure that this event is running right. Recently, the Formula One race, we have to make sure that our network can maintain and manage all of the use cases, the POS, the point of sales, and everything else, ticket booth. But we also have to make sure that our customers have a great experience too. So that means when you have outsized growth, you're growing very quickly, right? Maybe even beyond what you have deployed in the market, meaning small cells, towers, whatever. So T-Mobile has to make very strategic and hefty investments to keep up with the network, meaning data centers, right? I was told last night, T-Mobile is building additional data centers, and inside of those data centers, they're adding additional switch rooms, right? They have to carry all this traffic, and then they have to build for the and then some scenario. With all this growth, with all this outsized growth, they're going to have to build any and everything you can possibly think of as it pertains to networking. Small cells, they have to do it. I saw a post the other day. They're now starting to build millimeter wave in the 24 gigahertz in Atlanta. They're doing that, right? Maybe not to the scale that some of you may want or like, but they're starting to slowly build that out. They're testing it, but there is no, I don't want to say there is no testing necessary, but we see it work for Verizon for several, purposes. The mobile side in the arenas and the stadiums, FWA can handle millimeter wave can handle that a lot better, point to point. So T-Mobile's going to use that. They're going to utilize that. We're not going to sit here and say that they're not going to use it. They are going to use millimeter wave, but they're going to use it very specifically, very strategically, and the investors are very likely going to know every dollar that's going to go into that and every dollar that they get back from that investment, right? It's not just going to be a random deployment where they're going to deploy, millimeter wave small cell nodes all over the place, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to be very strategic, very specific, and that's something that T-Mobile discussed recently, so it should be of no surprise to anyone. But from a networking perspective, as they continue to handle this load, and they have to lead, right, on slicing the 5G core, so it enables T-Mobile to offer this now. They don't have to wait, right? So if that use case is there, T-Mobile is going to attack, and they're going to take, right? And that's something that Verizon and AT&T have to realize too. In the past, during LTE, AT&T, Verizon, they were taking share in the enterprise space and for use cases. It was either AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint. They got very, very little in that regard. In fact, maybe they got nothing. If we're talking like the Fortune 100 companies, they probably got nothing, right? They probably had very, very low single-digit share. But now T-Mobile is bringing solutions and they're taking their share. Is it fair share? Who knows, right? That remains to be seen. But it's all still very early on. So as T-Mobile continues to grow and they build those solutions and they built the network for the and then some scenario, right, for the additional capacity, right, Verizon and AT&T are going to have to strategically plan for that. They're going to have to add that into their run rates. They just have to. Before, they didn't have to. T-Mobile wasn't a threat in the big enterprise space. But now it's a totally different ball game. And from what I'm being told, what I'm seeing is T-Mobile is slowly but surely actually building their way into that. Do they have some more to go? Yes, they have a lot more to go. There's still a lot of backup generators needed. There's still sites that are needed. We understand that. But each and every year, as T-Mobile continues to gain these types of partnerships that you see on screen, it's more evident that they're willing and they're able to make this happen, right? We're talking AI RAN. That's going to come up very quickly. Time's flying by. 2025 is coming up next. Then we'll be in 26, 27. So AI RAN is going to play a bigger role in T-Mobile's strategic planning period moving forward. AI period across the board, right, is a big deal for T-Mobile. So from a networking perspective, it's more of a situation where T-Mobile is like, hey, we spent $26 billion gaining the Sprint asset, and now we're putting that spectrum to use, and now we're going to start seeing that return on that investment. But T-Mobile has to also understand that if you have that outsized growth, you're gonna have to invest in specific certain things to keep the network above water. You have to do it. During the end of LTE, and I mentioned this in plenty of other videos, it was a very, very bumpy road on the network. It was bumpy. It was a very inconsistent experience. Yeah, you had some sites that were fine. You had some sectors that were okay. But as you were handing off through different sites, if you had a site that was doing 20, you could run into the next site that was only doing 2 megabits per second. It was just too much for the network to handle for what they put on air and what they've built. It was just too much to handle. N41 quickly alleviated that, but if they continue to fill up and enjoy this outsized growth, and they are growing at ridiculous numbers, they will eventually feel it. And I hope that they are really taking that to consideration on a nationwide scale, and they're touching all of their data centers and switch rooms and putting all of the small cells into the ground, and not just in specific areas because the AI model says that this area needs it more than another area. I hope they look at that from a grand scale, and they just deploy, because it's obvious, as you see here in this article, that they can get these use cases and they can get these companies, and they're learning at each step of the way on how to do that, and they're looking to perfect it. So when they got the VA lines, right, they learned something, right? Whatever that is, they learned something, and now they might go and take what they learned through the VA, and they might take that to another government agency, right? Same with Delta Airlines when they got the 60,000 lines. They learned something during that process, and maybe they take that to another airlines, what they've learned, and they get those accounts, right? They each and every step and each and every interaction with CIOs and businesses, T-Mobile is learning something that'll help them perfect their process. And they have to take all of that and say, hey, we can do this, but we really need to make sure that this network is top notch. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See y'all in the next one. Peace.